Last night I was in court. I woke up being in court. I'm like, my God. And you remember how I said something setting off the Indian community? I don't think it's the Indian community. I think it's the Russians giving them a gift back using Jack the Rippers to protect their position because it's Indians' turn. I'm looking at the Russians funny. You know, Russia, East India is 16 hours by flight to Alaska by flight. If we go through Anchorage in modern day, it's 27 hours. They're in every country with a list in their hand saying you owe us X amount because of the British Empire, because of First Nations, because of Amerindian. Let's make that certain things clear. When we think of First Nations and Amerindian, we are aware that the Queen paid all those treaties off. Back then, it probably wasn't a good deal, but they've been covered. Amerindian are Turkic people, which makes them part of Yakut history. Local. Yakut is Chinese based, like white, white skin. I can go to Yakut and claim land reserves. We're all connected. These things were handled years ago. You can't walk into countries with a list in your hand saying these things belong to Indians. And that's why Prophet Hanna's $10 million Ottoman stamp was taken. Because in Turkey there was Indian, which was some like her grandfather, and we owe him money. You have to handle each case by law differently, no different than Hannah's handling it right now. If it's past a particular period, like 10, 15 years, and there's no activity or one generation even, it's not a valid claim. So you can't come into Canada and say, I'm East Indian and Indian is the same as Indian. You can't do that. But what made the story scary was I saw a man that at one particular time, was a Turkish man who helped me. In court, I was in military court now, and that man was 3 shades darker. So I saw his picture last night. And they're asking me if I use box dye, and I said no. I haven't done box dye in years. I have tried it, but I'm against it. I don't do box dye. If I do a skit, I will use a secondhand store wig or whatever. And the person who's doing the interview would have had to be an army personnel. He may be in lockdown. So the warden and the prisoner wants to change places. So by me going into prison, I release all these soldiers. Like they're playing these head games. And I'm like, dude, I don't owe you nothing. You came into our country, you jacked it. Mr. Greek, whoever that noble is, would be the only person who would be allowed to touch my work. But you can't claim Mr. Greek if he's been doubled. I didn't get anything out of this. I don't owe you nothing. I didn't do anything to you. Release our soldiers because the world is ending. Like you're fixated on in putting me through military court. How many years later? And the world may be ending. So release these men. Another entry.